All right, what I'm going to show in this session is some of the grading functions in Civil 3D 2009. This is a site that the Colorado Springs office is working on in Fort Carson. Just to give you a little bit of scale here, the pad and building outline we're looking at, that little green thing, is actually a modular unit for a phone communication building that is being brought in on a truck trailer that they're going to then drop in place, so not a real huge site. I think it's like 20 by 40 is all we're looking at there, or maybe 30 by 40. It's not a real huge piece of land, but a great little project. We were able to grade this in about an hour. And what we're looking at right now, the white image on here is actually from the preliminary site design, and this is actually a PDF file that we were able to reference to locate some of our geometry in here. So I'm going to start with the polyline here. We've got finished floor elevation. Other things we've already done in this model just to prep it is I've got a real short alignment up the center line of the road. Not that you need to design this one that way. I probably would have just done it with feature lines the whole way, but they wanted, for their training purpose, wanted to do some alignment and profile. So I also have a real basic profile coming off the street center line to flow line, and then we have a little high point so we can get our pipe in for our culvert, then a little low point where the fence line is, and then we come back up to where the building pad. The grades are actually what they had in the original document, so we kind of left them that way, which is another reason we wanted to put in a profile, because that would have been quite a nasty grade break. We're looking at about 12% grade break at the bottom there. To try to get vehicles over. So we thought we'd do a little bit of grading with a nice vertical curves in profile data. All right, so let me come back into here. A couple things to get this ready. I'm going to go into my settings, and we want to find the grading options here. I'm going to edit some of the feature. Oops, I only got styles in here, so I have to go down to the command level here. And what I want to do is want to create feature lines and just make sure that my settings are correct. Okay, so we're going to do, I'm not going to use names. I definitely want to use styles, because we are going to use styles to control how they interact with each other. And we're going to use the layer settings, and then the default styles. I'm going to come in here, and we've created, the drawing we started with is actually one of the National CAD standard files that came with Civil 3D. This project that they're working on, Colorado Springs, is at Fort Carson, so everything has to be per the National CAD standard. What we've done is we've added in 3 styles based on multi-layer names, and we've set up our site so that feature lines using style PR3D01 will control split point elevations over the other two. 3D02 will be dominant over 03. If we do 04, 05, we would do the same kind of thing. But I'm going to go ahead and set that 01 as my default. Okay, and we'll pick OK to that. So that's going to be create feature line. And the other thing I want to look at is under my surface and my commands where I add break lines. Let me see if I can find break lines on here. And I'm not seeing it. We'll try it up here. So edit feature settings. I sure don't see it. I sure don't see an option there to do break lines. I guess I'll have to do some typing. I'm not going to spend time hunting that one down. All right, so let's start off here. I'm going to make my surface just to be ready here. And we'll call this one P21. That's actually a site number. And we'll go ahead and use 1 5-foot contours for our display. And then we'll start off, and I'll add this polyline here as a feature line. And I just want to zoom in a little bit closer so I can read my elevation. And I'm going to do everything off the grading toolbar. So the second button over is Create from Objects. I'll come in, select my polyline, And I've already got a site developed called Com Center for a communication center. I'm going to give this one the dominant style of PR3D01. I'm going to erase entities, and I'm going to tell it to assign elevations. So I can pick on that, and then I can just come in and type in 5939. All right, and that converts that as now a feature line. So that's my first piece. Next piece, I've got my alignment and profile that I want to create a feature line from. We'll come back up to the toolbar, and that's our third button over here, Create From Alignment. All of these commands are also available from the grading pull-down menu, so there's a command also to create feature lines from alignment. So I'm going to do everything off the toolbar today. Come in, I'll select my alignment. Again, I need to put it on my site. Again, the sites, in terms of feature lines, everything on a common site will interact with each other. So any feature lines that touch or intersect will have a split point common elevation put in there. Being from my alignment, I need to tell it which profile, so I'm going to use my finished grade profile. Midpoint ordinance, so if I have arcs on my profile, how often do I want to sample? I'm going to bump that to a smaller number so I get more vertices. And then my style that I want to use, I'm going to put this one at 02, so it will be subservient or dominated by the PR3D01 style applied to my building footprint. So where those two intersect, the building footprint will win. Okay, I'll go ahead and use their layer. I'm going to turn off dynamic link. If I leave this dynamically linked, any edits I do to my alignment and profile will automatically update this feature line, but I want to be able to edit the feature line, so I'm going to turn that off. So we'll pick OK to that, and I now have the feature line right here. So I've got this feature line and this feature line, and I'm going to pop into a 3D view real quick here to kind of show you what's going on. Let me turn off triangles here, off my existing, so we can see a little bit better. All right, these do intersect just a little bit, and what happens is I get a little overlap here. Actually, it looks like very minimal overlap. So where they intersect, the feature line for the roadway, or for the building pad, will control the feature line for the roadway. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that was okay, so that's fine. Let's look at our site and show where that is set up. So if I come in here to feature lines, and I'm kind of concerned that I have 3 feature lines, but I've only made 2. And okay, hopefully that was probably leftover from prior attempts at grading this. But if I go into the feature line properties for the site and then go into options, you'll see here's where you control the sort order for split point resolution. So you can see I've set this up so PR3D01 is at the top, and then followed by 2 and 3, and then I'm just basically ignoring all the other ones. If I turn off this filter, then it's only going to show me the 2 that I've applied thus far, so I don't have to look at all the other stuff. But that's how we can control how these behave, and it'll become a little more apparent as I start doing some of my roadway offsets here. So let me zoom in a little bit closer here, and so bear with me. The PDF is a little bit slow on my computer. It's not a vector PDF, it's a raster, so it does take it a bit longer to regen and demonstrate that. But what I'd like to do is create now my flow lines off of this one. I'm going to put a 2% cross slope, so I'm going to use the stepped offset command, which is kind of like the create curb in Land Desktop, and offset distance, I'm going to go 5 feet, and I'm going to offset that feature line. I'm going to go to the left, and I'm going to do G for grade of -2. Okay, and then I'll do it again to the right, and grade of -2. And my image doesn't quite line up. I'm just kind of eyeballing it here. But let me go back and look at that at 3D, and my roadway is not parallel. So you'll see where it offset, there's the point where it intersected, and you can see it added the split point, but the building pad is dominant over the roadway line, so it pulled it up to that elevation. On the other side, they don't quite meet here, so I need to go in and fix that as well. So let me go back into plan view. And zoom in on those a little bit. So get it close enough so you can see there's where they overlap here. So what I'll use is there's a trim command for feature line. So I'll pick trim, I'll pick my building pad, enter, and then I can trim that off. So I got rid of that little segment that was going down. I can't do that for the other side because there's nothing to trim. If I zoom in close enough here, you'll see that there is a gap. There is not a 3D Polyline or feature line extend command. If you do use AutoCAD's extend, it will sometimes extend it, but what I find is it changes the elevation. So for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grip at it and maybe try doing a perpendicular O-snap. And if for perpendicular doesn't work, then I'll try using a nearest O-snap on it. So I can snap those in, and we now have those two pieces connected. All right, let me come down and work on my Kirby turns down my street. And what I'll do is I'm just going to snap a feature line to my three contours here. So I'm going to just draw a feature line on that site. And this one I'll use the O1 as my dominant because I want this feature line to control. And we'll pick OK to that. And I just need to be further than my street. So I'm just going to snap to endpoints here and take their default elevations and grades. All right, so now I have a feature line for my roadway. And where they actually intersect here, these yellow lines should be snapped up to where they match. Okay, so you can see I got an elevation change here, so those match now where the roadway one intersected. Okay, so again, taking advantage of that hierarchy and how it applies those. All right, let me turn this off for a sec. Make it a little bit faster to work with. There we go. All right. Next up I want to do is I want to break these or trim these where they intersect so I can then put in some Kirby turns. So let's trim. I'm going to do that first, and we'll trim these three off on that one, and then we'll trim between those two. All right, so now I've got feature line to feature line, and again, because the red ones are dominant, the elevation should be controlled by the existing flow line, feature line through here. Next piece I'm going to do is so I can put curb returns on them, I'm going to join them together. All right, so I'm going to pick join, and I want them to stay at yellow. I don't want to turn them red. So I'm going to pick the PR02 one first, and I'll attach this one to it. All right, and then I'll do it again, and I'll pick that one and attach that one to it. Okay, so that way they stay now at a PR3D02 style, so I don't override what's going on up here and change my building footprint. All right, curb returns are real easy. They've got a command here to fillet 3D polylines and feature lines. So I'm going to pick on fillet. I'm going to select my feature line. It shows me right now in the command line my radius is 10 feet. If you want to change that, you type in R for radius, type in the value you want. I want to use 10, so I'm going to kind of hover in here, and what you do is you put your mouse near a corner, you'll get a little glyph on the screen showing you what the solution is for that curb return. I will pick on that, and there's my curb return, and then I'll select the other side and pick. Come on, there we go, and I now have that curb return done, so I can come in and add in my two curb returns. All right, so kind of see it as we progress and get this built. I think what I'll do is start adding some data to my surface model. So let me come down here. I'm going to add them as break lines. And bear with me, because one of the things I have found, it's best to do this fairly methodically, and instead of just grabbing everything, is you do it by logical groups and organizations. Especially if you have problems, it's difficult to identify a feature line or break line to remove if you didn't give them unique names. So I actually do mine. I'm going to call it, like building pad. We'll do that one. I will supplement by distance, and there's no arcs on that, so I'm not going to worry about that. So we'll add that one in, and there's my surface. All right, so now I have a surface right there. We'll expand that. So now I'm going to do add, and I'm going to say driveway center line. And I'll do, again, every 20 just to get a little bit more data here, and I'll pick that one. Okay, so now my surface is a little bit bigger. And then I'll add maybe driveway EP. We'll add 20. Now these have arcs on them, so I need to put in a mid-ordinate distance to add vertices around the curb returns. I've been using 0.05, seems to give me a pretty decent looking model. And we'll grab these two here and we'll add those in. So as we progress and build our model, right now I don't have a whole lot of elevation change, so we're not seeing any contours just yet, but let me turn this on our style. Let me turn on triangulation for a sec here, so you can see how it added. With a 0.05, I get a pretty decent number of vertices around those curb returns. So I just want to kind of point that out. And then here's where I'm getting vertices every 20 feet along the straight segments, just so we get a little bit better distribution on the model instead of just the corners. Okay, let me turn those back off. So go back into styles, turn off triangles, and then we're looking at that. All right, I want to put in now the curbs themselves. So we'll work in this area here, and I'll use the stepped offset. And offset distance, I'll go 0.1. And we'll grab that one, go to that side, and I'll do a difference in elevation of 0.5. And then I'll do one over to this side of 0.5 as well. Zooming in again, I know that they're not parallel, so that one's going to overhang, so I'm going to just clean that up with a trim. All right, and then over on the other side, just work my way back. This one doesn't quite match. So you see I got a gap, so I'm just going to try to grip at it and see if I can do a perpendicular on that. Yes, I can. All right, so I'll just snap that perpendicular. All right, so then when I look at those in 3D, what you'll see is there's my curb line, and at the preceding grade break, instead of being parallel to my edge of pavement, it's actually snapped it down to the building pad. Okay, and same thing, we can see that on the other side, it's brought it down. So here's my grade break point, and then it ties in where it intersects. And again, that's using that hierarchy of behavior that the O1 is always going to be above the O2. All right, so back into plan view. Let me put a little width on the top of curb here. So let me go back to my offset command. I'm going to go 0.4. Grab that one, go to that side. We'll do a elevation difference of 0 to make it flat. And we'll come to that side again, 0. And I'll go in and just clean these up again. See if I can go perpendicular. Okay, so this one I'm not getting a perpendicular O snap, so that one's not going to work. So let me try just using a nearest O snap, and I just for that I'll just kind of eyeball it. So anyone can tell I eyeballed that? I hope not. All right, and then this side I need to trim. So again, I'll use their trim command. There's my cutting line, and there we go. All right, so then we'll take a look just again. I jump back and forth between 2D and 3D just to make sure everything looks good. So I now have a flat curb line between those two, and then a flat curb line between those two, except that one did something kind of funky. All right, so let me pan around that way, see if it makes more sense looking at it. Okay, it was just the 3D view, so from this side it looks good. All right, so coming back, next thing I want to put in is my fence line, and there's also a sidewalk along the front. And let me turn back on my JPEG. And actually, since I've been modifying these, notice how as I've made changes, it's showing that my brake lines are out of date. It's mainly going to be this building footprint because I've been intersecting it with these other feature lines. So let me actually, let's add in the remaining feature lines here. So we'll just call it driveway, curb, we'll do left, and again there's arcs in here, so I'll put in a mid-ordinate distance, and I'll grab these two. Okay, so now you can see I'm starting to get enough elevation in there that I'm starting to get some contours, and then we'll add the other side right. Add those two in. And let me go ahead and just rebuild just to clear all my errors off of there. All right, so it's all rebuilt. I very rarely turn on rebuild automatic. I find that just slows it down. Anytime you touch something, whether it's a feature line or something that's daylighting one of the targets or whatever, it's going to rebuild. On a larger model, it'll slow you down, but I just kind of as a habit, I leave that turned off. I'll do several edits, then I'll come back in, and then I'll add in the command to rebuild. All right, well, let me put in a perimeter around the fence line here, so I need my PDF image back here, so let me reload that. All right, so we got that reloaded. And what I'll do on this one is I will actually just touch this line. I think what I'll do, just to add a little bit more, I'm going to put in a little planting area adjacent to this, just to give me a little more room to grade with here. So I'm going to say, let's go like 2 feet off of that, and I'll do like grade of -3, and come back at -3 there. And again, I'll need to clean up because I'm not perpendicular. We'll just grab that one, and that one, oh, that one snapped. That's good. And then I'll come to the other side and trim this one. Hopefully this isn't too nasty through GoToMeeting here. So we trim that one off. All right, so I'm just trying to, as I work, keep my model pretty clean. Okay. Oop. Took off on me. That's the problem with working with this PDF in here, is pans and zooms are a little sluggish. Let me go ahead those in. I can almost spell top of slope. Again, just use the same values I've been putting in all the time here. And I'll just do both of those at the same time. Okay, so we'll just kind of, as we work our way through, should be getting very symmetric contours on the left and right side. All right, so let me now do the perimeter around the fence area here. And this one I'm going to do with just the draw feature line command. And I want to use this one as number 3 because I want to tie it to these edge of driveway ones, and I don't want it to change them. I want it to get the value, so we'll use 3, and then I'll just use the nearest O snap for now since I'm eyeballing off a PDF here, and I'll just kind of eyeball in the 4 corners, and we'll just take the default grades of 0 here. And then I'll just use the nearest O snap and tie into that one there. All right, and then if I want to check the elevation, I can just type E, so there's the elevation I'm getting. Okay, and that will tie it in all the way around. And again, I'll just pop into a 3D view so we can see what's going on as we look at it. So that's looking good. And then we'll do kind of a similar thing. I'll throw in a sidewalk off the building here. Actually, I don't need the PDF anymore. So let's get rid of that to speed things up. All right, and again, I'll just do another feature line. And I want this one to be a number 3 as well because I don't want it to change the elevation of any of the other feature lines. And I'll just eyeball where this needs to go. So I'll just say we'll start here and go perpendicular there so I stay parallel. That's fine. I'll take the elevation. I'm going to edit this in just a bit, and I'm going to go to the end here. And it should get the matching elevation here. And what I'll do is I'll use the quick edit, which is probably my favorite command, so I can highlight on there. It changed my building elevation. Hang on. It shouldn't have done that. 5939 is what we need to be there. All right. we go. It changed when I add that edit. Now, so I got that elevation put back, and I'll do like a 2%. I can type here off of there, so let's set that elevation, and that's about a 0.5%, 0.6% going that way, so that elevation should match. So that's fine. And what I'll do is I'll add those in now to my model. So we'll add brake lines, and we'll just call it fence. No arcs, so I'm not going to worry about arcs. And then we'll add in the last piece here. Sidewalk. And again, there's no arcs on that piece, and we'll add that one in. Okay, so you can see as I make changes, we get the model, the contours update. Okay, so that's all of the feature line pieces. Again, we'll just take a quick look at a 3D view. We can see we've got a pretty good looking model going on. At this point, it's been pretty stable, and actually I got a view here that we can look at in a shaded mode here. So we can see that we are getting, zoomed extents. We are getting some curb lines and curb faces on there, so everything's looking pretty good. All right, looking this way, we can see the rise and fall of our driveway. All right, big step now. Don't forget this one. I'm going to save. All right, what I'm going to show you now is getting a little unstable. All right, feature lines, by breaking them out the way I have, if something happens to one of these, it's real easy now. I can say, oh, my right curb is messed up. I can come over here and see here's my driveway curb right. Instead of trying to figure out which feature line here to get rid of, I can come in here and just delete that group and then go edit the two or the one or two that are giving me problems. Okay, let me hit just rebuild on here to make sure everything's updated and clean. All right. It takes a little bit more effort to do this, but I'm finding long run it is easier to debug and fix, because I have had several drawings now from users where their feature lines are corrupted, and through trial and error I was able to get in, find the one that was causing problems, and they caused fatal errors. We were able to delete it. Whereas if you had 800 feature lines all in one brake line group, it's very difficult to determine and identify which one is causing the problem. All right, final piece of this is I want to daylight. I want to tie this back into existing. What I'm going to use is this feature line here, and then these two feature lines, and we'll actually do daylight slopes here. And this also, I'll introduce some of the issues that we saw Brandon having with his model the other day. So I'm going to start off, and we're going to go up to the grading menu, and I want to create what's called a grading. All right, you start off in a grading, you start with the far button on the left, and we need to define a grading group, and these are contained within our site. I'm going to go ahead and just use their default grading group 1. Okay, you could be a little more explicit. This could be, you know, building pad, driveway, detention pond, or whatever. And then the next thing I need to do is I need to specify a target surface. All right, so I'm going to go to my existing E21 surface. All right, so I've got my target surface set. Working my way across, we could specify the layer. I'm going to go ahead and take the layer that's in my defaults. And then you also have what are called criteria sets. We've got 4 or 5, I think 4 criteria sets that you can load from the Nolte Civil 3D style library. This drawing, this template drawing with the AIA National CAD standard has just a single set in it called basic, and then within that set they've got these 4 different grading criteria, whereas the Nolte one, I've broken these out into different criteria sets. So I want to daylight existing, so I'm going to use their grade to surface criteria. I can expand this button here on the far right, and I can see what that criteria actually is. All right, so this one's going to use cut, fill, slopes. It's going to look at cuts first. All right, and you can change the order depending on what you want it to do. And then the default slope values that are going to be prompted are going to be 4 to 1, so that's fine. And then interior corner overlap, they've got some criteria here. I can't even change that. I have to go edit the style to change that. And then for cut and fill slopes, they have different styles controlling the display of the little chicken scratch mark. So we're mostly in fill here, so let me actually go and edit that. I'm going to turn the slope pattern on. It'll put on a little chicken foot, chicken scratch slope arrows here. All right, so let me minimize that. We've got our parameters set up, so I'm going to come over to this button now, and we want to do what's called create a grading, and this is kind of like the grading wizard from Land Desktop. So I'm going to do create grading, and I'm going to start with this perimeter polyline or feature line first. All right, I'm going to offset to the outside here and apply to the entire length. I'm going to answer no because I want to be able to modify where these slopes are relative to this driveway. So I'm going to say no. And then you get these little arrow indicators on here asking you where do you want to apply this. So I'm going to start at some point here, and it gives me a station. That's fine. And then my 2, I'm going to say don't go all the way to the end, but some point right there. And I'll take that. And then my format, I'm going to do it by slope, so I'll hit enter. There's my default 4:1. I'll hit enter. And fill format, I'll go ahead and just take the 2 defaults, and it will process and calculate. And it sure, boy, even better, didn't do a dang thing. Okay. Let me rebuild. Even better than I anticipated. That's not... Bear with me. Okay. Sometimes when I zoom extensive, it'll show me. All right. Let me... All right. Not a planned. Let me delete the group. All right. So let me make a new group. All right. We'll do grading group 2. Rebuild. All right. So let me try my daylight again. So I want grading group 2. E01, great. And we'll go that guy to that side. Four. And it is just not going to play with me. Here, and I thought I had it all working. So that's at elevation. Just want to check and make sure that was okay. Let me try it off one of these here. Actually, we'll do this one. I think I'm being dumb here. That was a cool feature, so that is why I saved it. Okay. That was quite a fatal crash here. Let me reopen that. No warning whatsoever. All right, so now you know why I said save. Okay, that's why they weren't showing up. My grading group, grading object layer was frozen. And then when I went to save that, it did not like it. Or when I went to thaw it. So let me try it again once we come back in here. All right, I mean, that's a good example of why you need to save and back up frequently, and make sure you keep these, keep these drawings as simple as we can. Bear with me, I got to reconfigure back for my reduced desktop here. All right, so so I thawed it. So let me try grading now with that layer thawed. So that's a good thing to know. So I'm going to create grading group 1, get my surface picked, come in here, we'll grab that object, that side, no, I want to go from there to some point over here, and 4:1, and look at that, it's got the right layers on. So there's my grading, my slope. Okay, now what I want to do is my curb line, so I'll say add grading on this side, and we'll go to there, and no, and I'm just going to start at some point there, go all the way past the end, and just hit return through the 4:1s. All right. On the right side here, I've got a bug with this model. I played with it this morning, and it was unable to calculate a daylight off this feature line, and the reason is off this vertice right here where it samples. I think there's a vertical face or something going on in my existing surface that it couldn't figure it out. So to fix that, I'm just going to kind of cheat, and I'm just going to say let's move that vertice just over a little bit. I mean, just something as dumb as that will make all the difference in whether or not this is able to calculate the grading. So I'm going to pick that line, go to the right side, answer no, and we'll go to that point and all the way to the end. Take the default values, and I'm able to get a slope in. And you can see if I zoom right here, you'll see how there's that pretty sharp change where this point samples here and the other one samples there. For some reason, if I didn't move that vertice, it puts that right on top of where that daylight is coming off that vertice, that it just can't figure that out. You know, so just kind of dumb little things. All right. What will happen now is what I want to point out, and the reason I did it this way is where these two different grading objects intersect, it'll actually figure out how to intersect those two adjacent slopes, and that's one of the benefits of doing this all in a single grading group. So in this grading group, these two intersect, and I can actually grip at it and move the ends around. Okay, and what I want to show is it can't always calculate. So I actually just broke it right there by pulling it like that. You'll see it doesn't know how to extend this one all the way through. So let me kind of come in and mess with it a little bit and see if I can get it to heal itself. Okay, so I was able to get it to heal itself, so it'll pull that in. But you're going to see times where you do that, and no matter what you do, it is unable to calc that. So here, yeah, so here, oops, I went too far. You know, so they're not intersecting anymore. We can kind of pull it around. Okay, it's behaving for the most part. It's doing pretty good. I've had times where it'll lose an entire edge, and it won't be able to figure it out. So let me grab this one. All right, so that's fine. I'm not going to save. Again, just wanted to demonstrate how unstable these guys are. Right, and we'll do 1/3 time here, and then I'll go ahead and finish up with the presentation. But you see the benefit of saving, another benefit of keeping your slopes as simple as possible. So what I'll do is show you the way I'd actually resolve this model to get this to work here. So yeah, I went through this morning to get ready. I had about 5 fiddle errors, so the fact that I'm only on 2 right now is pretty good. But just really want to stress, you know, you need to kind of just be real methodical and patient in working with these grading tools. And hopefully you saw some of the stuff I've done has been real powerful, but it's just, again, you got to kind of watch how this behaves. All right, so let me pull that in. So what I'm going to do to finish this is I'm actually going to join these feature lines together. So I'm going to start off with the trim command, and I'm going to trim that one there, and I'm going to trim that one there. Okay, it actually changed my surface model here, so you see it's telling me, hey, your definitions change. If I rebuild, you'll see my contours for the most part stay the same. A little different here because I don't have this line coming all the way up. All right, and then what I'll use is the join command, and I'll say we'll take that feature line, join on that one, and that one. Okay, so now I have a single. I still need to fix this little endpoint here that was giving me some fits, so I'm just going to use just a nearest O-snap and just kind of slide it up just a little bit. All right, so now I have a single feature line all the way around. Again, just rebuild just to make sure, and you see none of the contours change. So now I will do one last create grading here, and we'll go to existing, and we'll pick our object, go to the outside, apply. This time I'll say yes to the entire length. I find the entire length option is a lot more stable than when you specify what the lengths are. So you kind of draw and create your feature lines accordingly. And I'll just do 4 to 1s all the way around. And oh darn, what did I do? I left that layer off. Let me undo that, because we know what happens when I thaw that with a grading object. So let me do this one more time here. Entire length, yes. Take the defaults. And there's my single surface. So you can see doing it as a single object, I've got a real nice slope in here. Let me modify the style for a sec. So I'm going to change my fill style here, and I'm going to turn on the slope pattern. And then that way you can see that nice little chicken scratch, so we can see that this is all fill all the way around. It's stable. I'm going to save. All right, so that's kind of the key here. And then now as far as adding this to my surface model, there is an option with grading groups that you can create a surface directly from it. So if we look at our grading properties here, I want the grading group properties here, I can tell it to automatically create a surface from this grading group. But this is another just a level of complexity that we're adding in, and I think it does increase the instability of the program. So for now, I'm going to leave that off. And what I've been reading in the discussion groups, a lot of people actually come in and they will explode this, which will turn this into a polyline. Let me just show that real quickly here. So if I explode this grading object, so what you see is you end up with, if I list this now, it ends up with just this 3D polyline. And because it was an open object, you'll see as I pick it, it wraps both top and toe all the way around here. But that is something then I could come in and convert it to a feature line. I now have a feature line, or I could use it directly as a break line for my surface, and I can add it in that way. You just have to remember that at that point it's no longer dynamic. So if I change anything, you have to go back to the original feature line around the perimeter and then recalculate your daylight. So let me undo that explode there. All right, so I'm back now. It's a grading object. To use it in my surface, I will do it as a break line, so I'll add it in, and we'll just call this one daylight. And I'm not going to worry about, we'll add just to be consistent. And it's got some curved shapes in it, so we'll add 0.05. And then I'm going to pick just the daylight feature line. Now this is actually a feature line. I can use it to do other daylighting or other grading. So we'll go ahead and pick that. And it'll add in, now you see our contours update, and then we'll just finish up. I'll just throw in a real quick and dirty boundary around this, just to kind of get you a finished model here. We won't be too tight here. Make sure we get those. Okay, get some in there. Also, we've got a real thin layer of fill coming down that slope where we're probably just missing existing. So we'll close that up. I'll come here to boundaries. We'll add it. Call it outer. I don't want destructive break lines on it because I drew it outside my data. I don't have any arcs. I don't care about midpoint ordinate. Select my polyline. And now I get a nice trimmed surface model. Again, save. As soon as you have a success, you save it. Okay. And again, just pop that up in 3D so we can see what the model looks like. And maybe throw it in. I'll throw in the object viewer here. Well, that didn't work. Object viewer doesn't like it with GoToMeeting running. So there's our final model. And the reason I had frozen the grading layer in the first place is when I go into 3D view, the grading object will render solid as well as my tin surface, and they kind of overlap each other, so I get kind of that odd looking pattern here. All right, so that's what we ended up with. All of this is dynamic still, so I can come in, maybe raise and lower my building pad here. See if I can get there we go. So there's my building pad, and just for the heck, I'll raise it up a foot. Okay, so I can raise, but notice how all of these other feature lines hinged and folded up to match. All right, because of that hierarchy. and I just come in and rebuild my surface, and you'll see all my surface updates, and I now have a steeper building line or a higher building pad, and just put it back there. We'll come back in and we'll go -1, and it'll pull everything back down to come in and rebuild my surface, and you should see everything but my display updated. There it goes. And then regen, and all those feature lines will go back down again. Okay, and I'll just pan around and see how that looks. And just a finished version of this, one of the things we did, that guy there. One of the questions came up was helping somebody in Salt Lake going, well, how do I make a pretty picture of this? And what I did is actually threw in some masks, just drew a polyline and said, okay, take this area, mask it, make it asphalt, make everything else grass. Drew in some 3D solids to represent the building. So if you've not done any 3D solid modeling, it's real simple as picking on a face, and I can change the pitch of my roof, make it a steeper building. We applied some materials to it, and then when we view that in a 3D mode, we are able to, hopefully, without crashing, there we go. So we were able to get a quick 3D model. So what I did is applied a grass material to the entire surface, drew a polyline where the driveway and patio or the sidewalks were, said those are concrete or asphalt or whatever. We threw a pipe in and didn't apply any materials to that, so it's just rendering as blue. And then just real quickly assign to these two solids. You can assign materials to the faces, and we got those just right out of the tool palettes here. And if we bring that up, there's all these if you look at the bottom of the palette. And I don't by any means claim to be architecturally talented or savvy here, but there's a materials category which has all these different material finishes, and it's just a matter of picking and choosing what you want applied. So say I want to put carpet on here on the roof, and we just drag it in, and then I can hold the control key and say I want to apply it to that face and pick on it, and I've now carpeted the front of my building there. So that's simple. So in like 15-20 minutes, I was able to throw in a little stone block building on this that I could then sit down with a client or whoever and say, well, here's what your site will look like here. And then we could use some of the other tools to pan around and zoom at this thing. There we go. And my display just does not handle that real well. Okay, and you get a real quick model of what that looks like. All right, that brings me to exactly an hour from when I started. Any questions on any of this? All right, I assume you all are left and gone to do your own thing, so that will be okay. All right, hang on a second. I'm going to pause my recording here.